Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Daily Sib. Have to say, I'm definitely feeling it getting near the end of the week now. I'm a lower energy this morning, but I'm buoyant with excitement to have Hardeep Rai on today. Is it Ray or Rai? Do you say Hardeep?
It's actually Rai.
Rai, Hardeep
Yeah.
Rai. So from Kaleidoscope Group, we've obviously met a few times over the years, and it'd be good actually to hear a bit of the update myself because you've been very busy the last few months or the last year or so. But yeah, for everyone watching, it'd be really nice if you could just give a general background to who you are and what you've been up to.
Sure. Well, first of all, Martin, thank you for inviting me to come onto your show.
Pleasure.
I have to say, I have been watching it very keenly, and I've got my team to watch it as well. So it's a wonderful thing that you're doing.
Hello to the team.
So hi, everyone. My name is Hardeep. I've spent around, I would say, a good 15 years in financial services initially, Martin. So I was in hedge funds, sort of investment management, banking, that sort of arena. Yeah. And then I moved into private equity and venture capital. And I was in VC and private equity for a good 7 to 8 years. Mm-hmm. And 3 of those are working with, or 2 of those are working with James Caan, who I'll come to a little bit later in the show.
I used to love watching him on the TV.
Yeah.
I haven't seen too much of him lately, but yeah, I used to really like watching him.
He was my favorite dragon, actually, on Dragon. Yeah. Not that I'm biased, of course. But
no, of course not.
Of course not. So I spent a good 2 years working with him. And then I became an investor after James, when I set up my own company. To sort of invest in individuals, funny enough, that were not from a disabled background, just non-disabled and disabled. Yeah. And then I set up Kaleidoscope Investments about 4.5, 5 years ago, with the view of just investing into disabled people. So that's kind of my
great. I can't believe that's 4 or 5 years ago you did that.
I know. Wow. Staggering. It's amazing how time flies when you have your own business.
Yeah, no, it's mad. I mean, and obviously, I'm very adamant that anyone that's involved in disability and inclusion that doesn't have a disability is still absolutely valued and cherished as part, because we're all in it for the same reason. But obviously, you do have a connection to disability as well, don't you?
I do, yeah. So my son Ishan was born in 2006 in November. And he had a last-minute birthing complication, which meant that he lacked 17 minutes of oxygen to his brain. And that was I mean, it would be a shock to anybody, Martin. You're there, you think everything's going to be fine, and suddenly, and it was an overnight. I mean, it was within seconds, your entire world just, crumbled, because people knew at that point it was very serious. Is he going to live? Is he not going to live? And if he does live, then there's going to be severe impact into how his life is going to be, and the quality of life. And believe it or not, we were actually given 7 days to decide whether or not we actually wanted to turn his life support machine off as well, which is supposed to be processed, But when you see a little life there with all the different sorts of tubes inside literally every limb, no one's ever going to say anything like that. It's impossible. So that he really changed my life, and he's my inspiration. And today he's 13 years old. So it was a long time ago now. And he is, if I were to give you a list, Martin, of the things that he couldn't do, it's that long. Okay. Yeah. There's so many things he can't do. But actually what he has done is he has inspired me. And because of inspiring me, he's inspired, so many other people around in the world of disability. And I really bring him to the core of what I do. And I try, and funny enough, involve pictures of him, videos of him, so people can feel that essence of, why we're doing what we're doing. But he's in a care home right now. He's peg fed, so he needs a lot of, care, almost one-on-one care. Thankfully, he's not too far away from me, and not too far away from you, actually, in Royston. So I can get to him in under an hour, which is really convenient. Yeah. So I see him every single weekend.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. And I think, as you say, that inspiration you've had and the motivation is but a part of what all the other great things that you've done. And so it's really great. And happy birthday to Ishan. We'll give Ishan a shout out on the show today as well.
Oh, well, it's not actually 13 today. I've said that wrong. It's not his birthday today, but he is.
Sorry,
old as
Yeah,
of
he's
today.
13 at the moment. Yeah, I
At
got
the
you.
moment, yeah.
Well, whenever his birthday is, happy birthday.
Thank you. It's November.
Okay, cool. We've got a couple of little comments coming in. I'll just bring them up while
Sure.
we'll pause for a second. So, Gavin saying, great to see Hardeep on the Daily Sib. Hardeep is
Oh,
a really lovely fellow with a superb mission.
thank you, Gavin. That's very kind of you, sir.
And Mark saying, hello, gents. So, with a
Hello,
couple
Mark.
of people coming in from Facebook there.
Thank
So, yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot to unpack, really. I mean, I think, did you mention Kaleidoscope, and it was very much around investing in disabled entrepreneurs and businesses around disability. So could you just chat a little bit more about where that idea came from, some of the
Sure.
challenges as well? Yeah.
Sure. So back in 2014, I was approached by Shane Bratby, who's the founder of Disabled Entrepreneurs, and he was looking to raise money at the time. And I don't know what it was, Martin. It was something about Shane that I really endeared me. And I invited him to London for dinner. So he came and we went to a hotel for dinner. And it was absolutely fantastic because even on the first night that we were talking, we were having a curry, sharing a curry. I was sort of, because of my Asian mindset, I was cutting the chicken in his plate and sort of helping him eat. And there was a bonding there that was just instant. And he helped me to realize that people with disabilities, and in those days, he had a database of about 25,000 disabled entrepreneurs, 25,000, Martin.
All entrepreneurs.
Now, yeah, all people that wanted to start businesses. Now, not after GDPR, unfortunately, but this is prior to GDPR. And he helped me to understand that there was this challenge, that there were a lot of people with disabilities that want to start businesses, but they just can't find the investment. Either it's charitable, either it's enter a competition, either it's go and apply for a grant. It was all of those sorts of things.
Sounds very familiar.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, hang on a minute. I've got all this investment experience. I've got some phenomenal contacts in the hedge fund industry. I've worked for James. I met some amazing people. All I have to do is actually raise some money, and I'm going to focus on the disability market, because what really spoke to me was the word disability. Okay. Yeah. Because if it was my son, I thought I want to exclusively focus on this marketplace because this is where people are not getting the attention. So this is where NatWest comes in. And if anyone from NatWest is listening, you are and have been our greatest gift, because for the last 3-4 years, Martin, they have supported us with meeting rooms, their conferencing facilities. Two of the fantastic conferences we've ever had on disabled entrepreneurship were both held in the main RBS auditorium in Bishopsgate, and they covered everything, Martin. So we were extremely fortunate. And how we thought we'd start this was on Eventbrite. I just put a note up and I said, right, breakfast. Anyone with a disability, that's interested in entrepreneurship, please come along. Okay. So about 2 weeks before when we had a room for 30 people. So 2 weeks before, we had about 7 acceptances. 2 days before, we had 71.
Wow.
Okay? 71. So I had to beg NatWest to give me that room back to back for 2 hours. And we had to do a 4-hour session twice on entrepreneurship. And it was absolutely phenomenal. For me, Martin, it was one of the most special days of my life, because I was standing up in front of this group of individuals that were really inspiring, And when you stand up there and you talk about resilience, you have to shut up very quickly, because everyone can tell you about resilience more than you can, right? And it was one of those moments, and we almost had every single disability covered. And where we got very lucky, we had an individual from the BBC that came along, and he wrote a wonderful article on us, Martin. And that is actually, if I'm honest, that's what really launched Kaleidoscope. It was that article, because then what happened was we did another entrepreneurship event, and then it started. So that was the beginnings. And then as we started to grow, the way that we developed it was we did these training sessions every month, and we started inviting entrepreneurs to come along. Now, what I was doing here, and by the way, Martin, I'm going to, especially for everyone that's listening, I'm very transparent, and I'm very honest. Okay, so I'm going to share the good, but I'm also going to share the challenges, if that's all right.
That's perfect. We love that.
Because I'm not going to sort of pretend that it's been a perfect journey at all. So the first thing I had to do.
Journey is, by the way, right? Like, there's always challenges, but no, it's great. It's great that you're happy to share warts and all. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. So what I had to do first is I had to prove the concept, and I had to actually get some disabled people with ideas that were investable. Okay,
Yeah.
so that was the first thing. So we had to build up a pipeline. So we probably went for about 6 months to a year. And then I started talking to investors. Okay, and I said, right, guys, and I was going to my friends to begin with. And I thought I was going to get checks of 50,000, 100,000. I was getting like, here's £500, Hardeep. Oh, I tell you what, I'll give you £5,000. You know, they weren't taking it seriously, and they weren't taking me seriously. They were looking at this as a Hardeep passion project. Okay?
Yeah, almost the charitable side in a way they saw it.
Exactly. So every time I said Kaleidoscope and I tell them about something, they'd be like, "Oh, this is a wonderful charity." Okay?
Yeah.
And so then I thought, okay, I need to create this into more of a serious investment engine. So I thought, let me get FCA regulated. So FCA is the Financial Conduct Authority, and it's the regulator for the investment industry.
Yeah.
And so I thought that's the best thing I could do. So then people will take me more seriously. Okay. So that's what I started to do. So we started the process of getting FCA regulated. And then the pinnacle of my early days in the career was I was invited to speak at the Financial Times Family Office Summit in Dubai at the beginning of 2017.
Nice.
Okay. So I was on a stage with all these sheikhs and all these people talking about education and health and hospitals. And there was Hardeep stuck on at the end talking about disabled entrepreneurship. And do you know something? I had 100 CIOs in the audience, okay? And now CIOs is Chief Investment Officers, which from a banking industry, you can't ask for anyone more perfect, okay? So as soon as I spoke, the audience was gobsmacked because this whole concept of investing in disabled people, especially in that Arab world, was very, very new, very new. They'd never heard of it. And afterwards, me and Priya, there was someone on my team called Priya, we got 22 business cards. They were literally being handed to us because people were like, you know, we want to put money into this. How much are you raising? And in those days, it was £10 million. Okay. And I was asking for £1 million from each family office. Right. Yeah. So you can imagine in my mind, I was counting the numbers and now it really was. And I thought to myself, this, you know, couldn't get better, couldn't get any better. And then I realized that there was a problem with getting FCA regulated.
Oh, no.
And when I was on stage, of course, I was blowing the trumpet about FCA regulation.
Yeah.
We're nearly there. We've nearly got it. But I didn't say we've got it because we didn't.
No, but
we were on the journey.
Yes.
And I was talking about the importance of being FCA registered.
Right.
Okay? And then, and now it's not that we didn't get it, is there was a complication to do with the mentors, and the regulators wanted the mentors to become authorized because they were providing advice that would influence the way that the disabled entrepreneur might spend their money. Right. So it became a bit of it was a bit of a strange one, to be honest. But it really, really put a spanner in the works, really. So then what happens is I've got all these people that are like wanting money, that are becoming ready for money. And suddenly I've got this gigantic FCA issue, okay? Now I'm like, okay, no investor's going to look at me now because I'm not getting FCA anymore, okay? Yeah. What do I do next? Okay, so then what I had to do was, because, you know, the one thing about me, Martin, and this is a strength and a weakness, okay? I don't like letting people down, okay? It's one of these Hardeep problems. But the issue is, you can't please everybody in life, okay? Right. And, you know, there were two people I had to say no to. And one of them swore at me really badly, and he called me a nincompoop. I hadn't heard that word in the primary school days, but he actually called me a nincompoop on the phone and in an email. Right. Like, oh my God, this is.
I don't even know how to spell that.
I know. But I really did think to myself, you know, we have to be very careful here because also people that are coming to us are suddenly realizing here's a company that are going to listen to our ideas. And you know, the average time span that people were listening to, holding on to their ideas for 8 to 10 years. Wow. 8 to 10 years, because we asked them, how long have you had this idea for? So all of a sudden they're looking at Kaleidoscope as this savior business okay, that's going to come and take away all their problems. And then I'm thinking, I can't let them down on the one hand. On the other hand, I've got this FCA issue. So then I had to create an investor club. That was my phase 2, right? Okay. So I got high net worth individuals around me, and then I started taking ideas to them. And that worked better, to be honest, Martin. Okay. That was still not ideal because the problem there is that these guys are looking at it from the point of view if they wanted to pick the star businesses. Okay. So which are the ones that are really good that we can invest in versus the other ones that may not be stars, but are still very, very good businesses. Okay. And then the challenges I was getting from the other investors was, your revenue stream is not going to come for, 3, 4, 5 years. Can you not do something in the interim? And that's how recruitment was born. Okay. Because recruitment, number one, we were getting demand for it. That was the most important thing. But then number two, that could be a revenue stream. So then came the birth of Kaleidoscope Recruitment. And we thought, okay, following the same line with entrepreneurship, only for disabled people. And what I wanted to do, Martin, I wanted Kaleidoscope Recruitment to be a little bit different. It wasn't just about finding a job for a person with a disability. It was about helping them to create and define a career. Okay? And this is what I've learned. And we've met over 1,000 disabled people in the last 4 to 5 years. And I say that personally, as well as some of my team. Okay. And the one lesson I've learned is what you see in terms of what you think a skill set is very different to what their actual skill set is after you've met and spent some time with them, because a lot of them I found had challenges with their confidence, so they wouldn't believe in themselves, right? So if you give them that chance and that confidence, they could fly way higher than anyone else would ever imagine, right? And that's what I was finding. So for me, it was like Kaleidoscope Recruitment is going to be about building careers, getting promoted, not staying in one job for 10, 15 years, but actually moving up along the ladder. And also, my sister is quite a renowned employment lawyer in the city. And she advised me on making sure that we have mechanisms in place to help employers feel more comfortable that when they hire people with disabilities, they're not going to risk being sued, or by making sure they have the right infrastructure in place and the right training in place. And that, of course, is how Kaleidoscope Advisory was then born. So we thought, with the recruitment business, if we have a training arm, then it's an easy thing to talk about when you're talking about recruitment. Now, I appreciate that's a very competitive market. And to be honest, we're not going into there to compete. We're going into there to add a product that could help with recruitment, And the way that I've set the advisory business up, Martin, is I'm leveraging the people that are already in the industry. Okay. So, recently we were just talking to a company that are specializing in neurodiversity, right? So as part of our offering, we'll have their proposition plugged in. We've got our own CSR, offering. And good old Adam Pearson, do you remember Adam Pearson?
Yeah.
Adam's actually developed a product with us, which is called Dispelling the Myths, And so, it's things like that where you're leveraging people that have already done things in the industry, and then you're bringing them under your umbrella. And then we set up, the final arm was the charity. Now, the charity is not part of the Kaleidoscope group as such from a commercial structure, but it is, it's under the umbrella, and it is an independent foundation that is there to help with grants. So, we will give grants of up to £10,000 to people with disabilities, where they want to start social enterprises or charities or organizations where profit is not the number one priority. Okay. And we will also help them with skills training to sort of upskill them to find other things they want to do. So I really had this image of sort of being I hate to use this phrase, one-stop shop. Okay. But this, a place where we could get people with disabilities, we could try and do our best to help them. But if we couldn't, then we need to be much better at saying so, which we've become in the last 1.5 years or so.
Managing expectations.
And that's always been my biggest challenge, Martin, always. But then signposting them, having people that you can signpost them to and say, why don't you try and do this instead? So, so that's how we've and where we've got to today. I have to say, the thing I feel the most humbled about today is the team that I have behind me now. We've just launched our new website, and I've got a phenomenal team of people, Martin, and that's what's given me the confidence in being able to do what I'm doing now. Because I think what I realized before is it was Hardeep driving it, and it was a few people behind me that were kind of yes people, but I was driving it, right? Whereas now, in the last say 1.5 years or so, I've got people that are challenging me. And they're saying, actually, I don't agree with this, or you need to do this, or this is how our new expectation management policy, which we're sending out to everyone in the first meeting. So it's actually being challenged, and it's great being a visionary, but actually you need people that are going to execute on that vision. And I think that's why I feel a lot more confident now of the people that are around me.
Yeah, I mean, it always starts with that sort of dream and vision, and that's the thing that gets people involved. It starts, you know, progress and movement. And so I think everything you have always done is absolutely necessary ingredient. And as you say, it's just having those balance and checks about what can we do today or in the next month or the next year, and just having that sort of the how side only follows what the bigger objective is, and it just takes a while for it to all find itself, doesn't it? But it
does.
seems like you're in a good place now to still create the impact that you've always wanted to, but yeah, sort of managing the risks and the downsides that were there before as well.
And by the way, the risks and the downsides are pretty severe. Okay, so because we don't just to give a couple of examples on that, because we just look straight through the disability. Obviously, we need to know the limitations it has on the individual.
Yeah, of course.
But we have dealt with some individuals that have schizophrenia and, you know, paranoid schizophrenia active, which is the most dangerous kind of schizophrenia you can have. And even my dear mental health director, Zenobia, sometimes she's like, you know, Hardeep, what do you know, you've got to be really careful when you're interacting with these people. But the way I look at it, Martin, is we've made a commitment, right? We made a commitment to look at people for their ideas, okay? Yeah. And as long as we feel we can support them, and, you know, one of the things we say here is let them not be alone. Let there at least be another person on the team so that if there is an issue, there's somebody else that can take the baton, because, you know, we have to have that, you know, commitment to our investors. But, you know, but you have to be very careful, because these people, they can put a lot of, you know, and some of them have suicidal thoughts, and, you know, so you've got to make sure you then divide the line between, okay, what are your safeguarding protocols and what are your friendships? You know, you've got to make sure that the business and friendship is very different. So there are some things that have in the past really kept me awake at night. And my right hand, Hayley O'Connor, who I am mentioning here, of course, she's got the same issue. You know, she interacts with a lot of the entrepreneurs, and that kind of fear factor we've got to really manage very carefully.
Yeah, I mean, it's saying about managing expectations. So it's like whether it's recruitment or entrepreneurship, startup. So there's definitely an issue that we're all trying to resolve, that disabled people have less opportunities and access to the things that non-disabled people do. So that's a problem, and it's all the stuff that you and I and many others are trying to solve through different solutions, right? But on the other side, in the bigger picture of society, entrepreneurship and recruitment are competitive, tough worlds. And whether you're disabled or not, those variables are still in play. So as you sort of said, some people saw you and Kaleidoscope as a kind of savior and answer to the problems. And in many ways you are, and it is, but it's a step back to the even playing field. It doesn't guarantee that the business is going to work, or that the person's going to enjoy the job or be the right fit for a company. So I think that's probably the big part you've learned to articulate, is it's the leg back up where everyone ought to be, but then the rest is still totally unknown.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And I think trying to help the individuals that we've dealt with see it from the perspective that you've just mentioned is sometimes really challenging as well, Martin, because, you know, they've got, you know, entrepreneurs in general are very possessive about their ideas. And then sometimes if you bring a disability into that, then actually that could exasperate it, depending on the disability. And they can take it very, very personally. So you've got to be really, you know, careful about how you articulate these messages, but at the same time, being direct and honest with them as well.
No, that's cool. So I mean, it'd be good to dive in a bit deeper on a bit about the entrepreneurship investment side, and a bit about the careers. And I want to hear a bit more about James Khan shortly. If we start with the entrepreneurship side, so I mean, you know, is there a couple of, maybe you can't mention exact details, but just broader examples of people that were, you know, did receive investment and things they went on to do?
So there is the biggest, I would say, the biggest success story. One of the biggest success stories we have is a company called Mobility Mojo, with Stephen Klusky and Noel Daly, if you know them.
Yeah.
I met them going back not six, I think it's 2016 in Ireland. I met them the first time. So we haven't invested in them, but we helped them to get to the point where they were ready for investment. So it was a really good 2-year journey, I would say. You know, we got an investor, a mentor called Michael Green involved. And I think it was amazing spending time with Stephen and Noel in the early days as they were developing the idea. You know, and so we helped them to fine tune that commercial proposition and get it to where it needed to be. And then they got a fantastic investor, and now they're doing really well. So that was what that was testament to was that we had the knowledge that we could bring to the table to actually demonstrate how they could be successful. And then there is another wonderful guy called David O'Mahony. And he has been absolutely fantastic at developing this well-being product. So he's a motivational speaker, and he's got his own well-being product as well. And you know, there was a phenomenal conversation with him when we first started, because we were, you know, the Royal Foundation. So the Royal Foundation do a lot with wounded war veterans. Okay, so we had an alliance with them, or have, I should say, and we had a training session exclusively for ex-military, which, by the way, Martin, was the hardest session I ever had, because there was no facial expressions. Right, it's like in the room, and you're talking about entrepreneurship and everything, and you know, normally people nod and smile, and like, I was like, oh my god, this is the hardest session I've ever done. And David was in there, and he sort of came along, and he told me afterwards, about only fairly recently, do you know, Hardeep, I didn't even have an idea, okay, you know, when he came. But he developed an idea, and he spent so much time with Danielle Brown, who we also have as our head of training and development. Amazing woman. She's a brilliant motivational speaker, and she helped to tune him. And then it became a case of, okay, motivational speakers, there are a lot of people that are motivational speakers. Then what? Okay, what are you then going to actually sell? So he then created a well-being package, which was, you know, about things like gratitude and sleep hygiene and mindfulness and all these words which 2 years ago you weren't really paying that much attention to. And all of a sudden, you know, every school's got mindfulness on their agenda right now. You know, so we had David O'Mahony, that was another guy that we've really helped. And I made a note of a few others, actually. So there's, you know Simona, don't you? Simona,
no, I don't know.
Do you know Cocoa to Thrill? The chocolate.
Yes, I've heard that,
Yeah. So Simona Williams is somebody that we're working very closely with at the moment on her chocolate shoe. She was a Stelios Award winner.
Oh, okay.
So she won one of the awards. So we've got quite a lot to do with her. We've got about, what we're doing right now is we've got a top 10 list, Martin, of people that we're working very closely with, some of which I can't mention, unfortunately.
Sure, no, I understand that.
I'll tell you the spaces that they're in. Okay, they're in the spaces of wheelchairs. Okay, so one is a cushion, an ergonomic cushion for a wheelchair. One is a power wheelchair that's kind of like the Lamborghini of wheelchairs. Okay, on the one hand, you know, and it's sort of in the 22 to 25,000 pound price range. Real high end, but very, very strong wheelchairs.
Yeah, for anyone watching not so in the disability world, like that sounds a crazy amount of money, but that is actually a sort of average price point for the higher level design. And like my one I'm sat in was at 20 odd K. So I can just imagine some people watching may be like, how can any wheelchair cost over 20 grand? But they do, for lots of different factors.
No, that's very fair. And then we have a couple of travel businesses, because travel is very big. And funnily enough, you know, you spoke about the business you're involved in with Mark, the accessible ratings business.
Yes.
So there's another lady called Fiona Jarvis.
Blue Badge Style. I'm getting Fiona on the show soon.
Excellent. Fiona, I tell you one thing, Martin, she gives me so much inspiration as somebody that just doesn't let go. You know, she is a Rottweiler, and she is relentless. She comes back. Some people get fed up and they just go away, and she doesn't. You know, that is a trait of real entrepreneurs. You know, so
resilience and never giving up are the two key ones, right?
Absolutely. So I would say that we're working with about 20 what I would classify as rising star to star businesses at the moment, pretty closely. And then we have the lifestyle businesses, and we're probably working to develop at least 40 to 50 of them. We have no shortage of ideas. We're always welcome for more ideas, but
Sure.
we're very fortunate in that we've had people that through word of mouth have been approaching us.
Well, it shows that you've unlocked that, there are all these people with an idea and nowhere to channel it. So I'm not surprised that there's no lack in demand for it,
Yeah. No, there isn't. Not at all.
Yeah. I mean, obviously looking through, you know a lot about my story anyway, but there was the idea generation, access to mentors was so important, but to get your business more in shape. Then you can get grants like the Stelios Award. Like I got an unlimited award as a social entrepreneur grant, and there are some sort of 5 to 15, 20K sort of grants out there if people, I'm saying some of this for people watching as well, really, that there's all those options. With Shrin and I, for a Commable, we got the Skull Foundation grant. So there was those things you talked about before, the charities, the awards, that sort of stuff. But as you said at the beginning, the getting a proper investment where it's understood that this can have a big return, this business can, with capital and investment now, it can get bigger and better and give more returns to everybody. Like, how are you seeing that from the investment side? A bit like when I'm always talking about the purple pound in the marketing sense for brands. Are investors getting more aware that it's a true marketplace with true business potential now?
Do you know, it's a brilliant question. I would say in the last 1 year, I have seen a shift in the investor mindset, which is really good. And it comes with this social impact mindset, responsibility, a responsible investing mindset. People are beginning to look at this a lot more closely now. And so there are some social impact funds that are out there. But what annoys me, is that they call themselves social impact, and then they're offering returns of 15 to 20x, which is very venture capital. So that's 15 to 20 times, which is, for a socially responsible investment. It's not to say you couldn't get that, but you need to tend to look towards, the 3, 4, 5, even possibly up to 10. But the minute you start going 15, 20, 25, that's a VC. So, if you are a social impact fund, then be a social impact fund. For me, that's if you are a charity, then be a charity.
That's a really good point.
But I think there are people that have changed their mindset, are investors, and it's a bit ironic here. And this is actually a very sad thing to do because of the tragic loss of life. But the irony is the coronavirus has actually made a lot of investors become a lot more empathetic. So there are people that I used to deal with before that didn't want to know us that have got back in touch with us, and our investors are primarily family offices. So, they've got foundations, they have more for sort of a social mindset. And I'm beginning to see quite a big change, Martin. So I'm really hopeful. There's a wonderful lady called Susan Scott Parker. And one of the things she told me to do one day was to write a white paper for the government on my 5 years of entrepreneurship experience and really go into the detail so that other investors can see what mistakes did we make, what did we learn, what have we changed, what are we doing right now, so that they can do the same thing. It's not about Kaleidoscope being the one and only business that do this, because we could never do that even if we wanted to. It's actually helping other investors to see things as we see them, so we can actually make an impact.
No, it was very similar with Purple Goat, where we will not be the only inclusive disability inclusion influencer social marketing agency. There's room for a lot more like us. The key is that brands want to work with to talk to disabled people and disabled customers and use social media and influencer marketing to do that. So it's like you say, if you do that social change bit with the investors and with big brands, there's so many benefits, not just to consumers and disabled entrepreneurs, but there's all sorts of things like what we're doing that others could be doing similar things as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think there being no barriers to entry is also really important. So
Yeah.
with us, you know, whoever approaches us, there are zero costs, Martin. And this is across the line. You know,
Yeah.
if we end up investing in a business, we take a small equity stake in it, and that's it.
Yeah.
So it's not, you know, the whole training, the whole meeting people, the whole interacting with other entrepreneurs. That is the beauty of what we love, is that, you know, we create so many people make friends. And, you know, entrepreneurship is actually a very lonely place to be. Okay,
Yeah.
because it's not like you've got a team of people around you. And when you start meeting other disabled entrepreneurs, suddenly you feel sort of a kinship, and you know, you've got a similar commonality.
I totally agree with that. So I mean, I think we'll start moving towards the careers side, but is there anything else you want to mention on the startup investment entrepreneurial side?
No, I think if people want money, we're obviously very open to still talking to people. But the only thing we need to say in terms of managing expectations here is, because of COVID, we're not doing any sort of investing until Q4 this year. So from September onwards. But we're still very happy to talk to people if they would like to talk to us in the interim to develop.
And I mean, obviously, in-person events have all stopped, but are there any sort of newsletters or like resources that people can tap into remotely?
Yes. So very shortly, there's going to be a page on our Kaleidoscope group. There's going to be a link that tells you what upcoming events there are. So we do a lot of our training sessions just online, you know, so people can, they message Hayley. She does a short initial conversation with everybody before they join, and then we'll bring them and we can invite them in. So it's open to anybody that has an idea.
Yeah, I like that. That manage expectations. It's, you know, there's no investment right now, but there's still ways that people can get involved and have that community connection of other disabled entrepreneurs as well, right?
But you know, Martin, it takes 3 to 4 months to get your idea to become investment ready anyway.
Definitely.
Even if you start in May or June, that takes you into Q4 in any case. So there's never a time that you shouldn't become an entrepreneur or start thinking about it.
Yeah, no, too right. Cool. So let's get on to careers and recruitment and James Khan. Tell me a bit more about James, first of all.
So I was at, again, being a bit personal here, I was going through a divorce in my life at the time, and I was not in a good place work-wise. And I've been out of work twice in my life for 3 months, okay? And the first 3 months I was out of work, I had a lovely payment, so I was not worried about finding another job.
Yeah.
But you know what I was doing? I was basically meeting people and pretending everything was okay, but actually I was looking for a job, okay?
Right.
The next 3 months that I was out of work, I didn't care, right? This is a few years later. I was really blatant. If I was having a coffee with someone, it was because I was looking for a job, okay? And this is my first tip, right? And not that I'm trying to give tips, but my first learning.
It's great to give value to the viewers anyway.
Yeah, do not be afraid of asking people for help, okay? Because there are people around you right now that can probably get you a job or get you introduced to somebody that can give you a job if you ask, okay? Because the thing I learned is that ego in you is a thing that wants you to think, oh, you know, especially when you're coming from the city and you've got these grand titles and now you're asking somebody for a job. But that's how I got my job with James, okay? Because the irony is my sister, out of all people, knew one of his lawyers. Okay?
Right.
And his lawyer managed to get me an interview with the CEO of one of his businesses.
Wow.
And the funny thing is, it was just a conversation. So, and I'm gonna write a book on this one day, Martin. Okay, it's like, you know, the kind of zero to hero thing. And so basically, on a Thursday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I had a coffee with somebody in his office. The Friday morning, the next morning at 9 o'clock, I had an interview with James. Okay.
Wow.
And these were the days that I think he was just probably still on Dragon's Den, or maybe just. And, you know, I walked into his office that was probably 4 times the size or 5 times the size of anybody else's office. And he was sort of sitting there on his BlackBerry, you know, the way his glasses are a bit sort of down on his nose. There was somebody coming to get him to sign sign something, a secretary in the corner of the room. And he was like, so Hardeep, tell me about yourself. Okay. And you know, Martin, I was a bit breathless from coming up the stairs. I was looking at this other secretary. I was thinking there was another secretary behind me. And I started waffling so much garbage. I just can't tell you. I was talking about my O levels and how I failed my O levels. And forget my A levels or degree. I
It
was
was
getting
like the whole story.
and I was, I was hyperventilating,
Yeah.
properly hyperventilating, right? And he just looked up and he looked at me and he asked the two ladies to leave. And he said, "So Hardeep, let me tell you about this role." And he started talking, okay? And he calmed me down. And that 45-minute interview ended up being an hour and a half, okay?
Right.
And then the following Tuesday, actually straight after that interview, I was then invited for another interview the following Tuesday. And, funnily enough, over that weekend, I was in a charity shop, Martin, and I found a book on James Caan, right?
Yeah.
And I took it, and this is my second biggest tip, okay? Before my second interview with James, I produced a mini brochure on myself, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I took his logo from his website. I said, proposal from Hardeep Rai, for client director position, page 1, what is the job spec? Okay. Yeah. Page 2, why do I think I'm good for that job? Mm-hmm. Page 3, what questions do I have for you, James? And page 4, if you give me this job, what am I going to do in the first month? Mm-hmm. Okay. And I got that bound in the most expensive way I could, which was £10. Okay. Yeah. And then when I went to see him on Tuesday morning, he said, "So Hardeep, have you been thinking about this job over the weekend?" And I said, "Yes, James, so much so that I actually produced this for you." Wow. And you know what, Martin? He just looked at it and he just smiled. Do you know what I mean? He just he just smiled. And then at the very end, then we had another really long conversation. And the minute the conversation started getting into salaries, I kind of thought, okay, this is really, really hopeful. So he gave me his card at the end and he said, "Phone me at 7:20 this evening." Okay. Right. Really precise.
Yeah.
As I was going down the stairs, okay, there's this thing about desperation versus really enthusiastic and keenness. Mm-hmm. And you know how there's a sword edge, in between. Yes. So as I was walking down the stairs, I was saying to him, "James, I promise you, please, if you give me this role, I will not let you down." I was literally pleading with him, trying not to be desperate, even though I was so hungry for it, but trying not to be desperate. And, I found out afterwards and on subsequent programs that he's done on TV, that last 1 or 2 minutes of your interaction is actually really critical, really critical. It's because, all of those things help them to make their decisions. And then, of course, at 7:20 that night, I got the job. And It was the most amazing feeling. And guess what? All those people, as soon as I updated my LinkedIn, all of those people that didn't want to know me, that didn't want to have a coffee with me, suddenly became my best friend. Suddenly they'd been on a 3-month holiday, or my email went into their junk folder, or there were all these excuses. Yeah. So it was an amazing thing. And I think what I'd love to say to people now is, as negative and as worrying as this current climate might look, with the talk of the recession or things, there are always ways of reinventing yourself, okay? And I'm a really, really big one on purpose. For me, the whole point of Kaleidoscope is, as you said, is to give a level playing field, a platform. But the ultimate aim is I want people to find purpose, right, through their careers. I feel I've been very blessed with Ishan, and, from a religious point of view, I became a Christian 6 years ago. So from a personal point of view, I'm very much at peace. I'm very much at peace. But career-wise, and that's a personal journey, obviously, but career-wise, I really want people to be able to do that. And people are in jobs because they need to pay their mortgages, they need to pay their bills. Actually, this is a phenomenal time to reevaluate what you want, what you feel you can do versus what you want to do, okay, because they're two different things, and actually go out and be creative. The one thing I also learned from James is don't wait for a job vacancy to apply for a job. Don't. You define the job you want, okay? You think about what your skill is. You decide what other jobs out there in the market that are going to pay X amount for what you want to do. You pick the companies you want to apply for, and you go apply for them. Because a number of jobs I personally gave to people that will come off the street. They wouldn't even know what jobs we had, right? But we would love the fact that they were thinking in that way.
But it's always about the people, isn't it? I often say with investment that, and it's obviously the same with employment, that it's about the person. You invest in the person as much as all the other things that they're bringing, like the idea or the product or the service. It's really, when you get down to it, you want to be around people that are enthusiastic, creative, make impact, all that kind of stuff. So if you can present yourself in that way to the right people, opportunities will fall your way.
And the other thing I think is really important, and this is something we talk a lot about, is the motivation behind why you're doing what you're doing and understanding it. Because if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, you know, you will never be able to get through the difficult times, because you'll be pushed over. You know, you've got, it's like with Ishan, you know, we've had to pivot 2-3 times. And if I look at the pictures on my wall all the time and I remind myself of him, I know why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But it's really important for people to recognize that as well within themselves.
Yeah, definitely. That's really amazing. Was it James that was the one that like didn't have a big flash office when he started?
Yes.
So he would meet people in the lobby of posh hotels.
Yes. The joke there was the broom cupboard. He sort of had a broom cupboard, but he'd meet people in hotels.
Yeah. It's, I mean, that, you know, again, it's, I guess another tip is resourcefulness. Like the way you said that binder, when you had the brochure bound, was tenner, but the value, that 10 quid you spent, was immeasurable, really.
Well, I heard from other people afterwards. He used to use me as a case study.
Really?
I mean, I never heard that, but I heard that from other people, that this guy created a brochure for me, and he even said he never read it. It's just the fact that you make, because the other obvious thing is differentiating yourself, and it's the same in entrepreneurship. And you know, credit to you, Martin and Srin, for what you did for Ecommable, because you know, you in the recent days, both of you in the recent years, have been the success story that everyone has been holding on to. Do you know what I mean? And you need to be able to have that credibility somewhere along the line to say, actually, look at these guys. They were bought by Airbnb. So you want a success story in the industry? Look at those guys. And you sometimes need to be able to do that to give people the confidence.
Yeah, it's showing what's possible, isn't it? Both ways, because there's a lot of disabled people that would start to feel, why bother? Because like there's no opportunities, there's too much discrimination, too many barriers. But actually, we've shown with all of the types of skills and tips that we've touched upon today, you know, it's possible. And equally on the investment side and the business, whether it's recruitment or goods and services or marketing, again, like it's possible. You just have to open your mind and then stick to it as well.
Yeah,
so
right.
We're going to wrap up in a couple of minutes, Hardeep. I told you.
I
told you it would fly, didn't I?
I have so much left to say.
That was really what I was going to give the opportunity for, like the last couple of minutes. I mean, the big one was on the recruitment. Just a quick summary of sort of how people can get involved if they are looking for help that way. And then, just any sort of final thoughts you want to mention, really.
Sure. I think, so with Kaleidoscope Recruitment, if you go to our new website, so our website is kaleidoscope.group. There is information there on how you can get in touch with us. We're very personal right now, so it's not about fill out this form or fill out that form. It's, you know, if you want the investment, there's one person. If you want the recruitment, there's another person. And then we have an initial call with you. And then we start off by doing an assessment. And it's actually a risk assessment as well, Martin. So it's an assessment on the individual. It's a risk assessment on them as well. What level of support they need. We also provide them with some training if they need it. So if that's interview skills training, if it's confidence training, and then we give them a careers consultant to speak to as well, who will actually say, okay, this is what you think you want to do, but actually, is it the right thing for you to do? And have you thought about doing this? And this is the most important piece. And once we've done those three things, then we begin to help them to find a job. Okay, because for us, you know, part of our differentiation is making sure we really understand that individual properly first.
And that they understand, helping them to understand themselves as well.
That's right. You know, because sometimes when I'm talking about entrepreneurship, I do a whole session on soft skills, right? What's your nature? What's your personality? Because the answers to certain questions help me to understand how they're going to be entrepreneurs. and it's very similar in a career orientated, because, we can all be pretty good salespeople, let's be honest, when you're sitting down in a 1-hour interview, but actually life is a lot more than that. And, our mindset with Kaleidoscope recruitment at the moment is more headhunting. And I think because we've luckily over the last few years, we've built a very big database of people already, it's very easy to just flip that into the recruitment, because we know so many of the people anyway. Many of them haven't started successful businesses, but they love to find jobs. So it's actually, it makes a lot of sense for us to do it that way. But like anything, I've picked a great team of people. Funnily enough, one of our advisors is someone that got money from James Caan.
Okay.
She got money from him, and she sold her business back to him as well.
Right.
so yeah, delighted for people to approach us on the recruitment side if they would like to. Likewise on the investment side. And I think the only thing I would say are we going to wrap up now? I'm guessing. Are there any other
minutes, sort of by one, we're going to wrap up. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, I suppose the other thing I was going to say is just to leverage this current time, because, a lot of entrepreneurs are coming to us with COVID-19 specific ideas. Face masks, they want to go into gloves, PPE equipment, but the issue is, if you just think about COVID-19, then it's probably got a time span. And the only thing I would say is that great to have an idea that's going to do well now, but actually have something that will lead afterwards as well. So it's not just during this time period, it's going to be whatever's in our new normal, so to speak.
Yeah, as you say, I don't want it to run out of steam when, in a good way, the virus goes away, or there's a vaccine or whatever it ends up being. But yeah, I agree that it's how do they build on that into a longer sustainable business?
Yeah, exactly.
Gavin's just asked, do we think that there will be an improvement in job opportunities post-COVID?
Do that's a really good question. I think, ironically, for disabled people, yes, Gavin. The reason I say that is because there's a lot of people with disabilities that haven't been able to apply for jobs because of challenges with mobility. Whereas now everyone's doing things at home, actually, that's made many, many more people much more accessible. I know people in my own team that are trying to do that at the moment. So I think the other big issue here is the sectors. There are some sectors that are totally wiped out at the moment, but there are other sectors like health, food and beverage, excluding restaurants, obviously, but online, that are going absolutely through the roof. You talk to one recruitment agency, like I was talking to them yesterday, and they've had the best 2 months they've ever had. And you talk to someone else and they're about to close down because they've been in a sector like construction or something that's been really badly hit. So I think it really does depend on the sector. But I think, like I said earlier, I wouldn't be too driven by what's going on in the sectors. Think about what you want and then make a pitch, make an application. That's
that's whether it's a business idea as an entrepreneur or as a job. Because I think there's a misconception about employment's been difficult for disabled people, so owning your own business and being your own boss is the only way. But some people are just not made and built to be entrepreneurs, and they bring a lot of value in a bigger organization if there's the flexibility of that organization to have to cater for that person's needs. So I think as businesses get generally more open to flexible hours and home working, there's a lot of disabled people that may feel that's actually the better route after all. And there's another word that's doing the rounds called intrapreneur, and it's where you have that entrepreneurial flair and ideas and creativity, but you can channel it within your role at a company as well. So I think we always like to put labels on stuff, but as you say, it's what does that person like and what they're good at, and where does that plug in with the bigger picture of the economy? And there's always that happy medium for people.
Very much so. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more.
All right, Hardy. Well, any final thoughts to mention before we?
No, just thank you very much for giving me the time, Martin. I really enjoyed it. And I can't believe an hour's gone by. I mean, normally I do 10, 15 minutes, but it's remarkable. I must have spoken a long time about something. I'm not sure what, but,
well, if you've got
the opportunity.
No, a pleasure. I really enjoyed it, and a lot of value for people watching as well, and obviously on the replay. Thanks to everyone that's watching it, not on the live. But if there's other things that you would have wanted to touch upon, we'll get you back on in a few weeks and have another chat about those topics anyway.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you, Martin. I might well pick you up on that.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks a lot, everyone, for watching. Another great episode today. I think it's Friday tomorrow. Is that right, Hardeep?
It is indeed, yeah.
The days. I did know it was Friday, but I'm definitely ready for the weekend. Oh yeah, tomorrow we're on at 12:30 because my guest is Ross Hovey, and he has a very busy day job at Lloyd's Banking Group. So yeah, we'll be on at 12:30 to fit around his schedule a little bit. So yeah, I'll see you all tomorrow, and thanks again, Hardeep.
Thank you, Martin. Okay, bye everyone.